If you're genuinely wanting to build a massive squat, then this video is perfect for you. My name is Finn O'Farrell. I've squatted over 300 kilos twice at World Championships and European Championships, achieving a 300 kilo squat in both competitions. And now I've made this video for you guys to help you guys improve your squats as much as possible. So make sure you watch all of these segments so you can get all the information you need to progress the most. So going on to the first part of the video, and the arguably most important part of squatting is going to be the technique. Now, before I run through the squat technique and what you should do with regards to unracking, walking out and things like that, there's one thing you need to make sure you 100% get down, because this is very important and this will also carry over to the deadlift. So you might already know what I'm about to say, but it's going to be the brace. So when it comes to bracing, a lot of people get it wrong. They think it's just about bracing their core, but it's really more than that, and you're really using your breath to your advantage. So the idea with the brace is to expand your stomach as much as possible and create as much intra-abdominal pressure as possible. So what you're going to do is think about breathing into your stomach as much as possible and expanding it as much as possible from all sides. So you're breathing in, pushing out. And then you're going to brace your core like someone's going to punch you. And then you're going to do something called the Valsalva maneuver. So you're going to try and breathe out but stop yourself. It's like you've plugged your nose and you're trying to breathe out your nose, but you're just doing that as you're lifting. So something you can do to test if it's working. Your sides, well, your hands into the sides of your oblique. Breathe in, brace your core, and then try and breathe out but stop yourself. You should feel them like pop out. And if you're doing that, then you're doing it correctly. So you want to do that before every single rep, and make sure you hold that all the way down and all the way up. Don't let go of your breath while you're lifting. So getting into actually how you should squat. So the first thing you're wanting to do is to set your hands. So your hand position doesn't matter too much. I wouldn't recommend going too narrow, because you want to go wide enough to where you're able to tuck your elbows when you squat. So I would just say go into the position where you feel the most comfortable, which for me would be around here. So what you will do next is go under the bar, and now you can either squat high bar, so it would be this position here, or you can squat low bar where it's a little bit lower and it's sitting on top of your rear delts. Now for powerlifting, most of the time I would recommend low bar. There might be like 1 or 2% of people that would be stronger high bar, but 99% of the time you are going to be stronger low bar, so I would recommend the low bar setup. So make sure when you're doing a low bar setup, the bar is on top of your rear delts. So now you have your hands and your bar position set up. You're going to want to set your feet up for when you unrack. So you want this to be something around what your stance is going to be, because you don't want to be like insanely wide when you have a very narrow stance when you're squatting. So you have that set up, and then you're going to brace before you unrack. So breathe in, brace your core, Valsalva maneuver, and then unrack the bar. Now you're in this position here. What you're going to do is take 1 step backwards, 2 step backwards, 3 step backwards, and then I'd say a 4th one as well, and then you should be set into your position. You could do this in 3 steps, but anything between 3 and 4 works. And then now that you're here, you need to choose your stance. So you want to choose a stance that's the strongest and most comfortable for you. So for me, it's around shoulder width with my feet completely straight forward. Now you need to make sure the stance allows you to hit depth, so that's going to be different for everyone depending on what your leverages are, what your weight class is. So I can't really say what's going to work the best for you. It's the same with like the grip widths. It is really just different for everyone. So just have a play around with it and see what feels the strongest for you. So now we're in this position here. You let go of that brace, and then you want to breathe out but push your chest down so your torso is stacked. And then now when you're in this position, you're going to brace again and then squat down to depth, and then squat back up while making sure you hold onto that brace. And the reason I said about breathing out and pushing the chest down is a very common mistake people make when squatting, is having an extended or arched lower back, so that in this position here. But you want your torso to be neutral and stacked. So a good cue is breathe out and push your chest down so everything is stacked, so then you can brace from this stronger position. But that's everything in regards to technique and everything you need to know there. Let's get into the programming side of it now. So now when it comes to programming, it is very, very personalized and it's going to be different for everyone. So I'm just going to show you guys 2 examples of 2 of my clients and show you their programming and what I do with that, and then you can use some of these ideas and take it into your programming. But if you do want help with programming, click the link in my bio and apply through my online powerlifting coaching, and I'll get back to you as fast as possible. But the first lifter here, he's called Elliot. He's a 105 kilo male and his best squat is 272.5 kilos, but it's going to be a lot more now. He has a competition in a week and it's going to be looking at something above 290 kilos. But here is what his programming looks like now. With his programming, he goes a top double and then 2 sets of 4. So it's very low volume, and this would be a primary day. So if we start off on a week 1, let's go find that now. So you have a week 1 here. He starts around RP5. So the volume stays the same the entire block, and it's just the RP that goes up. It doesn't go up that much. His blocks will stay between RP5 to RP6, and that's his primary day. So we never go extremely hard on squat, because if he goes more than that, he crashes. With heavy lifters and very strong lifters, most of the time they can't go to like RP7, RP8 on the squat and the deadlift, because it really just crashes them just because of the absolute load, and they can't really handle it for like doing it in training. And then for a secondary day, very easy. So it stays between 60 to 66%, which isn't even on the RP scale. So it's extremely easy. Same thing I said about, again, heavier lifters can't really handle that much work. So this is what we do. Very minimalistic style of squatting, but his squat went from, I think he did at the start of this training cycle, if we go and actually have a look, he did so 250 at RP 5.5, and then just a couple of weeks after, he did 265 at RP 6. So he added like 15 kilos and only half an RPE, and that's doing a very minimalistic style of training. So this will work for some sort of people. So I would say if you're a heavier lifter and a very strong squatter, less is usually going to be more. And that's in a sense which is volume and intensity. But now if we get on to a lighter lifter, so this is my client Max. He's 74 kilos, male. And his best squat is 200 kilos in competition. Now, his programming is going to look very different to Elliot's, in the sense of it's going to be harder and he's going to have more of it. So if we go and find a squat session, so this would be his secondary squat session. So if we remember back to Elliot's, it was 2 sets of 6. Now here we have a top set of 4 and 3 sets of 4, and this is going to be tempo squats. Now, with his secondary day, it will go from RP5 to RP 6.5 in a block. So versus Elliot's, not even on the scale, RP work. So it's a lot harder. But with Max, when he does go above that 6.5, he does start to crash. So still, again, it's going to be heavier, but not crazy heavy on that secondary day, or it will be too much for him. So just take that into consideration when you're programming. And then for his primary day, again, it's just more. So he has a top triple and 3 sets of 4, and he goes from RP5 to RP7 to RP8. So everything's just more intense and everything's just a little bit more when it comes to programming. Now, that's that when it comes to the actual squat. When it comes to accessories, I normally say just have the accessories there to build more muscle. So things like leg extensions, leg press, just program them to build more muscle, but put them in a way where it isn't going to be affecting a squat or a deadlift session. But now, when it comes to if you're using them to fill in like volume gaps because people can't handle more workload, I'd normally say try and do as much competition squatting as you can. If they physically can't do it, but they benefit from more volume, then I would say add in some sort of close squatting variations. Whether that's like, you could do like high bar squats, maybe if they can't handle low bar squats, hack squats, pendulum squats, belt squats, things like that. to add it in, but I would say don't program the same way that you'd program the accessories for hypertrophy. I'd say have them a little bit lighter. But yeah, it does depend for everyone, but the accessories can either be used to build more muscle or fill in volume gaps and things like that. But that's that when it comes to programming. So when it comes to nutrition, if you've watched any of my other videos before about how I got lean as a powerlifter, things like that, you probably have a good idea of what to do when it comes to nutrition. And now when it comes to building muscle and getting stronger, they are very, very similar. There isn't too much to change. I just want to get one thing out the way, which is bulking, because there's so many misconceptions about it online with what you should be actually doing. Now, when it comes to building muscle and getting stronger, yes, if you're in a surplus, you have more energy. And that more energy may be able to be used to build more muscle and get stronger, but that isn't always the case. It depends on you and what your body composition is currently. So let's say you're 8% body fat, you're extremely lean, you don't have that much fat on you, you don't have that much energy stores to actually contribute to energy when you're training. So to get stronger and to build muscle, you are going to need to be in a surplus. You can gain fat so that you're going to have more energy. But if you are already a high body fat percentage, it's very likely you do not need to be in a surplus to build muscle or get that much stronger. Yes, the heavier you are, the better your leverages are most likely going to be for squat and bench. But I'm just talking about generally. If you're like 15% plus body fat, you don't need to bulk and you can just maintain, you'll be able to build a significant amount of strength and muscle. Now, I'm not saying not to bulk. You can always be in a slight surplus. But I'm just saying you don't need to unless you're extremely lean, which most people aren't. But if you are extremely lean, then it is very likely you will have to bulk. But when it comes to the actual macros of what you should be eating, it's the same again. So 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound you weigh, and then for fats around 0.3 grams per pound you weigh. You can get up to 0.5, but you don't need to. And then fill the rest in with carbs. It's the same thing. The more carbs you eat, the more energy you're going to have. But obviously you don't want to be under eating on protein or fats because they're very important for building muscle and regulating your hormones. So just make sure those are on lock. And I'd either recommend maintaining or bulking depending on what your current situation is, and cutting as well. Because if you're a high enough body fat, so like me when I was 120 kilos, I was able to cut but still build muscle and get stronger just because of how much energy I had stored, and that energy being fat. So don't be scared about cutting. You won't always lose strength, and it's very unlikely that you'll lose muscle either, unless you're like 8% body fat. Then it's very likely you're going to lose both of those, but most people aren't. But that's enough for nutrition. Let's get on to the mindset about squatting. Now, powerlifting is a very physically demanding sport. You're lifting heavy all the time, you're training for long periods of time, you're putting your body under a lot of stress, but a lot of people overlook the mental side of powerlifting. Your mindset is very, very important when lifting, because your mindset could make or break a session and a competition. If you're going in scared of the session, thinking it's going to go wrong, there's a very high chance it is going to go wrong. But if you're being positive and staying positive, thinking you can do this, it's very likely that it's going to go well. So I will always say, when it comes to powerlifting and squatting, always be positive. And even if you have a bad session or a bad set, don't let it ruin the entire workout, because then you're just letting one set dictate your whole session. That's like saying you wake up in the morning and something goes wrong, you wake up, you miss the alarm by 5 or 10 minutes. You're not just going to give up on the whole day and not do anything all day. You're still going to go ahead with your day and get everything done. It's the same thing with powerlifting. Just because one set went bad doesn't mean the whole session needs to go bad and the whole week of training needs to go out the window. So just be positive and make sure you aren't, obviously it's going to be a little bit nerve-wracking when you're doing a heavy squat. You have a massive heavy weight on your back, but there's a difference between nerves and anxiety. If you're getting very anxious and actually scared, you probably need to really look into your mindset and how you're actually approaching lifting and training, because that isn't a very good place to be when you're training. You don't want to be anxious at all when you're squatting, because that's where some things can go wrong. A little bit of nerves and being like excited kind of to get into the squat set is absolutely normal, but you don't want it to be excessive. So all I'll say is be positive and don't let negative things overwhelm your training. So when it comes to equipment, a lot of you might know what equipment you should use on squats already, but I'm just going to do a little run through of the equipment you should be having when you're squatting. So the first one, and most people will know, is going to be knee sleeves. Now, these are inside out, I apologize. But any sort of knee sleeves, you could use like an SBD knee sleeve, which are the more, the less stiff ones, or you could get like A7s, Inzas, where they're very stiff. Me personally, when it comes to squatting, I really like the A7 rigor mortis sleeves just because they give so much support at the knee when squatting. But you can use any sort of knee sleeve. Just remember, when you compete in IPF sanctioned competitions, you need to have IPF standard equipment that, that you're allowed to use at IPF competitions. But the next equipment, and I would say this is optional. Well, these are all optional apart from the shoes, but I would say this depends on the person. So these are wrist wraps. So I would normally recommend them for the squat, but it really just depends on what you like when you're squatting. If you like your wrists to have a little bit more freedom when squatting, I would say maybe squat without. But I normally recommend using wrist wraps, especially when you're squatting very heavy. They just help with support and help supporting your wrists. But the next one I would say most of the time would be non-negotiable for a squat. The same with the knee sleeves would be a belt. So this is a SBD belt. These are probably the best sort of belt that you can get when it comes to lifting. And we discussed already in technique about bracing, so you can brace without a belt, but if you do have a belt, it's going to greatly actually help your brace, and it's going to increase your brace a lot. And now going on to the final part of equipment, we have the shoes. Now these are Avancuses. You can have any sort of flat-soled shoe or heeled shoe if you cannot hit depth while being in a flat-soled shoe. But when it comes to actually hitting depth, I would say make some changes with your foot angle and your stance before you actually move the heeled shoe. So try going a little bit wider, turning your toes out more, and seeing if there's other factors that may be affecting your depth before going into heeled shoes. But that's that for equipment. Now I'm pretty sure that was my longest YouTube video I've ever done, so I'd appreciate if you guys would like and comment and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and if you found this helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video.